Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive into trading. Today, we're looking at something called Forex Trendy.
Forex Trendy.
And Forex Trendy is a tool. And today, we're going to try and go beyond just like the surface level marketing stuff and really like kind of get down into like how it works, what it does, and, is it worth checking out?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, maybe they're new to Forex trading and they're looking for something to make sense of it all.
Right. And there's so many different things out there and so many different systems that say they've got the secret sauce.
Yeah.
But one of the things with this particular system that kind of jumped out to me was that it seems to address a problem that I think almost anyone who's tried Forex trading has probably run into at some point, which is just those like super choppy markets where the price is just bouncing all over the place and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, like their website describes it as the slow torture of sideways markets.
Yes, exactly. Like sideways markets can be like the bane of a Forex trader's existence.
Yeah.
And so their big promise is that, if you can identify those clear trends and stay out of those periods where the market's just chopping around you, can really increase your chances of success. But there's a lot of different ways to analyze markets. So what's interesting to me about Forex Trendy is that they say they use pure price action. So what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so instead of using like traditional indicators, which can sometimes lag behind or generate false signals, it's really just focusing on what the price itself is doing. And so it's like a back to basics kind of approach.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So they're saying that like by just looking at the price, they can somehow like predict the future?
Well, I don't think they're saying they can predict the future, but they are saying that you can see these emerging trends potentially earlier if you're analyzing a massive amount of data. And they actually are analyzing a huge amount of data. 306 charts, so 34 currency pairs across 9 different time frames, and all of that is being analyzed every single second.
Every second. That's a lot of data. I mean, but does all that data crunching actually translate into a real advantage for the trader?
Well, that's the big question, right? And they argue that, yeah, because it's constant and because it's multi-time frame, it allows the system to kind of pick up on those subtle shifts in momentum that maybe a human trader would miss, especially if they're trying to look at a bunch of different charts.
Okay, but let's say, for argument's sake, they can identify trends. So, like, why is trading with the trend so important? I mean, couldn't you make money by going against the trend too?
Potentially, but it's definitely riskier to go against the trend. And, one of the things is even if you have a system with like a 50% win rate, so basically flipping a coin, if you add on top of that trend identification and you can bump that win rate up to even like 70%, just by aligning your trades with the direction the market's already moving in, that can become incredibly profitable.
Because you're getting more winners. And over time, that really adds up.
It's the power of compounding, right? And it's not about winning every trade. It's about winning more often and cutting your losses quickly.
So it's more about picking your battles wisely rather than just, swinging at every pitch.
Exactly. And that's really what Forex Trendy is marketed as. It's this tool that does a lot of that heavy lifting for you, especially when it comes to those hidden opportunities.
Hidden opportunities? Like what kind of hidden opportunities are we talking about?
Well, they say that it can spot trends not just in the major currency pairs, which obviously everybody's watching, but also in more exotic pairs that might fly under the radar. So you could potentially get in on a move before everybody else does.
That's interesting. So you're not just, riding the wave.
Yeah.
You're maybe finding the wave before it even starts.
Yeah.
But it gets more complicated than just like the general trend, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Traders look for specific setups within those trends. Like, how does that part work?
Yeah, so that's where the chart pattern recognition features come in. And they're claiming to have developed algorithms that can automatically identify classic continuation patterns like triangles, flags, wedges, things that often signal that a trend is going to keep going.
So it's almost like having like a second set of eyes scanning the charts, looking for those patterns that could lead to profitable trades.
Yeah, and instead of you having to go through hundreds and hundreds of charts manually, and it's kind of outsourcing that task to the software, and then that frees up your time and mental energy to focus on other parts of your strategy.
I mean, that part is definitely appealing, I'm not going to lie. But how do they know these patterns are reliable? Like, I've seen so many breakouts that just fizzle out and leave traders holding the bag.
Well, they say that their algorithms aren't just looking for any old pattern. They're specifically looking at patterns with strong, well-defined trend lines that have been tested multiple times, which theoretically makes them more reliable. And in their materials, they even give this specific example of a USDNO breakout from a triangle pattern on the hourly time frame.
So it's not just like, oh, there's a triangle. It's like, okay, how strong is this triangle? How likely is it to actually break out?
Right. And they argue that that's something that a lot of traders, especially new traders, struggle with. And so by automating this process, it kind of levels the playing field.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. It's like having an experienced trader looking over your shoulder saying, hey, look at this. This looks like a good setup. So we talked about trends and patterns, but are there any other kind of key features that are worth highlighting?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to dive into. We could talk about their real-time alerts, the historical data, and the pricing structure. But I think that's probably a good place to pause for now.
That's a lot to digest. But if you're as intrigued as I am to learn more about Forex Trendy, you can click that link in the description, and we'll be right back to keep breaking it all down.
So before the break, we were talking about how Forex Trendy scans all these charts across different time frames.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's kind of mind-blowing, like the scale of the analysis that they're doing. Um, but I'm still a little fuzzy on like why is that multi-time frame aspect so important?
Okay, so think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to navigate a city. So if you have like a map of the entire city that gives you a good overview of the major roads, landmarks, right?
Right.
But if you need to find a specific address, you probably want a more detailed street level map.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So in Forex trading, like looking at different time frames is kind of like zooming in and out on that map to get
Right.
different perspectives on like how the market's moving.
Exactly. So a longer time frame, like a daily or weekly chart that shows you that big picture trend.
Hmm.
But then to actually pinpoint your entry and exit points, you often want to zoom into a shorter time frame, like an hourly, a 30-minute, even a 1-minute chart.
Okay.
And what Forex Trendy does is it analyzes all of those time frames simultaneously, from 1 minute all the way up to monthly.
So instead of me having to like flip between all these charts and try and put the pieces together myself,
Mhm.
they're giving me that like multi-time frame perspective all in one place.
Yeah, and they even have this feature that gives you like a quick summary of the trends on all the different time frames. So you can instantly see which ones are showing the strongest momentum. It's like a bird's eye view of the entire market.
Okay, that's awesome, especially for someone like me who can get a little overwhelmed with too much information. But let's bring it down to like a practical level. How would a trader actually use this multi-time frame analysis to make trading decisions?
Okay, so let's say you're a swing trader. You're looking to hold trades for a few days or even a few weeks. You might start by looking at Forex Trendy to identify a currency pair that's showing like a clear uptrend on the daily chart. And then you might drill down to a shorter time frame, like the 4-hour chart, to look for a pullback or a consolidation pattern. That gives you a good entry point.
So you're basically using the longer time frame to confirm the overall direction of the market, and then the shorter time frame to fine-tune your entry.
Exactly. And that's where the chart pattern recognition features could come into play. You might be watching for like a bullish flag pattern or a descending triangle that breaks to the upside. And that confirms a continuation of that uptrend that you saw on the daily chart.
Okay, and then once you've identified that entry point,
Yeah.
you would set your stop loss order below the pattern's low and your take profit order based on the overall trend you identified on that higher time frame.
Right, exactly. It's important to remember that Forex Trendy isn't giving you like specific buy or sell signals. It's not telling you exactly when to enter or exit a trade.
So it's more like a co-pilot.
Yeah.
It's giving you guidance, but ultimately you're still the one making the decisions.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's where your own trading style and your risk tolerance and your experience come into play. And I think it's important to remember, those alerts we talked about, those can be really helpful, especially for traders who have busy schedules. You can set it up to notify you when certain patterns emerge on your chosen timeframes. You don't have to
Mhm.
be sitting there staring at the charts all day long.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really stood out to me. Like, it's like having a little assistant, watching the markets for you. But let's be realistic, no tool's perfect, right? Like, what are some of the limitations that traders should be aware of when using something like Forex Trendy?
Well, I think the biggest caveat is that past performance is not indicative of future results. So it's identifying these trends and patterns based on historical data. But the markets are dynamic, they're always changing. So what worked in the past might not work in the future.
So even if it's like identifying what looks like a really strong trend, it could reverse.
Absolutely. And a pattern that seems reliable could break down.
So the traders always have to, approach any tool, no matter how fancy it is, with a little bit of healthy skepticism
Mhm.
and use their own judgment and their own risk management techniques.
Right. It's about using these tools to inform your decisions, not to blindly follow them.
Okay, that's a super important point. Any other limitations worth noting?
Well, another thing to keep in mind is that Forex Trendy, like a lot of technical analysis tools, it's focusing primarily on price action. So it's not taking into account fundamental factors like, economic news, geopolitical events, central bank policies, things like that.
Right. All those things can have a big impact on currencies.
Mm.
So you could be missing out on some important fundamental developments if you're just relying solely on Forex trending.
Exactly. It's always best to use a combination of technical and fundamental analysis to get a more complete picture of the market.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one thing that really jumped out at me in their marketing was their emphasis on simplicity and like
Mm.
ease of use. They talk a lot about the intuitive interface and the fact that it's web-based, so you don't have to download or install anything.
Yeah, they're clearly trying to make it accessible to a wide range of traders,
Yeah.
from beginners to more experienced professionals. But the question is, does that simplicity come at the expense of functionality?
Right. Is it actually a powerful tool or is it just like a shiny, user-friendly surface with not much substance underneath?
Right. And from what I've seen, I think they've actually struck a pretty good balance between user friendliness and functionality. They have a good range of features from basic trend identification to more advanced pattern recognition. And it's all presented in a really clear and concise way. And they give you customization options.
Hmm.
So you can tailor the analysis to your own personal trading preferences.
Okay, so they haven't dumbed it down too much. What about the pricing structure? Is this one of those super expensive, subscription services?
Not at all, actually. It's pretty affordable, especially considering all the features they offer. They have a quarterly subscription for just $37.
Wait, $37 for 3 months? That's less than $13 a month.
Yeah, and they even break it down further in their marketing materials. They're like, oh, it works out to about 60 cents per trading day if you trade 5 days a week.
Wow. Okay, that's really inexpensive, especially if it can actually help you, improve your trading results. But is there a catch?
Well, they do mention that the price might go up in the future as they get more users and need more computing resources. And they've also hinted that they might switch to a monthly pricing model down the line.
So if you're thinking about trying it out, it might be smart to jump on that introductory pricing while it lasts. Okay, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to some of the other features that caught my eye, especially the historical pattern data and the live charts. Those seem like they could be really valuable for backtesting and really refining your trading strategy.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something that definitely sets Forex Trendy apart from a lot of other trading tools. And I think that's a perfect segue into our next segment where we can really delve into those more advanced features.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how Forex Trendy analyzes the markets in real time, looking at trends and chart patterns.
Right.
But I think one of the coolest things about it is that it gives you access to all this historical pattern data.
Right.
And for me, that just opens up like a whole other dimension of analysis.
Oh, absolutely. Like having that historical data lets you go back and test your strategies, see how they would performed in the past, which is super valuable.
Especially if you're new to trading or even if you've been trading for a while and you're just trying to like refine your approach. Like I remember when I first started, I spent so much time like manually back testing different ideas,
Yeah.
just trying to figure out like what worked, what didn't. It was so time consuming.
Yeah, and with this tool, you can see how often certain patterns have actually led to profitable trades.
Yeah.
What the average win rate is the risk-reward ratio, and you can even filter it by specific time frames and currency pairs.
Wow. So you can not only see like what's worked historically, but you can also kind of like tailor that analysis to your own trading style and the markets that you're interested in.
Exactly. It's like having a little trading laboratory where you can test things out without risking any real money. And then on top of that, they have those live charts of emerging patterns.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to see those historical patterns, but to actually see them forming in real time, that just seems incredibly powerful for like making trading decisions in the moment.
It is. It's all about anticipation.
Mhm.
Seeing those live charts lets you get a feel for, okay, what patterns are developing? How strong is this trend? Is the market showing confirmation or rejection?
So instead of reacting to what's already happened, you're actually trying to get ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like peeking into the future a little bit.
Well, as much as you can peek into the future in the markets,
Right.
but I mean, obviously nothing's guarantees in trading.
Sure.
But it does seem like Forex Trendy gives you a lot of tools and insights that could help you, mitigate risk.
Yeah, and I think risk management is probably the most important thing in trading. And their focus on those clear trends and reliable patterns that definitely helps with that.
I keep thinking back to something you said earlier about trading with confidence. And it seems like that's a big part of their message. Why is that so important, do you think?
Well, confidence in trading comes from a few things. It comes from knowledge, it comes from experience, and it comes from understanding your own risk tolerance. It's about having a plan, sticking to the plan, and not letting your emotions get the best of you.
Right, because I think a lot of traders, especially when they're starting out, they get really intimidated by the market. and they get caught up in like the fear of missing out or the fear of losing money.
For sure. And Forex Trendy, I think, is trying to address that by giving traders those tools and those insights to make more informed decisions. So, identifying trends, recognizing patterns. It can help you reduce that uncertainty and approach the market with a more strategic mindset.
Yeah, it's like the difference between driving with a map and a GPS versus driving in the dark with no headlights.
Exactly. Having the right tools can make a huge difference.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've really explored Forex Trendy inside and out. We've talked about how it identifies trends and patterns, how it uses historical data, and all those cool features like the live charts and the alerts.
Yeah. And we talked about, why trading with the trend is so important, understanding those different time frames, managing your risk effectively.
And if you're interested in learning more about Forex Trendy, we've got a link in the description. You can check out their website, watch some videos, and even sign up for a trial and see what you think.
Yeah. Test drive it for yourself. See if it's a good fit for you.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Forex Trendy. Hopefully you found it informative, and until next time, happy trading, everybody.